Well, thank you very much for your very kind introduction to such a great project. And did you need to do sort of much research,
That did. I think Alan will bear me out on that. That ran into the following year, didn't it?
Yes. I think the advantage that Michael had, that he got very much involved with the Wheelers when they used to have their tours around the castle. He established a lot of research and interest in that, which enabled Tess to contribute to her favourite Red Cross charity.
Yes.
And that's where Michael came into his fore.
I think that's absolutely right. That's the source of the involvement at Chilham, and the involvement of Dennis harks back to 1996.
Yes. And did you need to do sort of much research, through speaking to other people, etc., in order to generate the material for that narration?
Yes. By the time we started the video, I'd been involved for 5 years.
Ah, okay.
And but the first 18 months were the most intensive, but the process is still continuing. I could give you an example of a recent discovery in the park, which was made just last year. You all know the acronym LIDAR, I'm perfectly sure, it's a form of a visual way of capturing subterranean sites from up in the sky. So you can tell from aspects of the ground that there might be something of interest down there. And a chap was idly playing around with the LIDAR on Chilham Park and said, "What's that?" That is a very regular geometrical shape, an octagon, a long way from the house. And he said that he thought his colleagues ought to go and look at it on site. And one of them got on to the castle owners, the person administrating the house on behalf of the executors, because sadly Tessa and Stuart Wheeler have both died. And she said, "Well, you must call in Michael because he'll be fascinated to see this." And I was particularly excited because one of the theories I've developed about Chilham is that the Saxon yew tree in the churchyard and the front door of the house, the entrance to the park, front door of the house, the back door of the house, and this octagon are all in a straight line. But I didn't know about the octagon until last year. So this is confirmation, to my mind, of this vista going all the way through. So that's another example of how this is an ongoing process. We're now almost 20 years. In March of 2023, it'll be that long.
And the film was sort of made with the idea of being sold.
Originally, yes, that was the idea. They, the Ratcliffes, were very involved with Operation Sunshine, which is an organisation which sends goods and clothing out to countries in Africa. I don't know, Alan, is it more than one country?
Several, yes. It operates. It used to take all sorts of equipment to them in the way of bedding and other office materials and that sort of thing. And they would hire a skip and they would send it out to Zambia or somewhere in Central Africa for the benefit of local people.
Mm. So that was the focus of the video as far as the Ratcliffes were concerned. But sadly, the sales potential, as I've discovered over the years for knickknacks about Chilham, is more or less zero. I don't know why that should be, but even the locals, the people who live in the village, I don't know whether Alan's got a theory about that. Do they think they know enough about it?
They tried to sell it at the post office, but I think with any sales, you need to create a want. And when people go in there and say what they need, you can always add on, "Would you like to buy a copy of the video at Chilham as a memory of your visit to the village?" But it did, as Michael said, sadly, it didn't sell at all.
No. I've produced panoramas, I've got copies at the back there and so forth, and it's a handful of people, absentees, people from a long way away, particularly members of the tribe of Diggs descendants are very interested.
Yes, it's a shame that the sales didn't meet
the expectations.
Yes. But it is a marvellous legacy of a very, very polished filming back 20 years or so ago. So did the team, including Alan, did you consider yourselves as a team trying to make a professional product, or was it really an amateur hobby, a bit like the films we make in this club?
I would say with Dennis's experiences and the number of documentaries that he has made, he would aim for a professional standard.
Which he achieved.
Yes, agreed. And it was with selling, you have to create the want, and it did happen on the 400th anniversary when they had a lot of visitors from the States, and that sort of did, but it didn't stimulate the local people. Somehow or other, they felt, I suppose they lived there and they were familiar with the surroundings, which is a pity because it's lovely to look back on.
Well, there's a cliche, isn't there? Familiarity breeds contempt.
Yes, yes.
And so we know Dennis, Kathleen, yourself, Michael, and Alan were in the team.
Can I just say I had a very small part. I was happy to be involved with them. It was lovely, lovely weather. I got 1 or 2 photographs, and I'll put them on here for people if they want to look at them. But I was, you could term it in a joking manner as a bag carrier, because I didn't have the technical knowledge. Peter, Michael, I keep calling him Peter. Michael,
People do.
Michael had the ability to transmit this lovely voice, which goes in such a professional manner to this video.
And were there any other crew members?
Well, no, not when we were creating it. No, it was just the 4 of us, and we had a whale of a time, didn't we?
It was lovely. It was lovely memory.
Now, we've been particularly impressed by the sound. You're standing sometimes in the middle of a field, and the sound quality comes over as if it was a voiceover done in a studio. Any idea how such a good quality soundtrack was achieved?
Alan?
Well, Dennis, when they lived in Heathfield Road in Barham, he had a room which was purely his studio. And I think it was his interest and his ability to create the quality which has been provided.
No, but there are many occasions when you're standing outside narrating, or was the narration done again and superimposed?
I think it was all done at once.
If I might interject,
Please.
if you study the film really closely, you can see the trailing lead of a tie-clip microphone. Just down in it comes underneath your coat, and you see about that much of it, which indicates to me that it was a little tiny clip-on mic that went back.
Yes.
Probably not to the camera, probably to a portable tape recorder that Dennis had. But it might have gone into the camera.
I think it did. From my recollection, I don't remember 2 gadgets, so I think it must have gone to the camera.
And it would have been a better quality sound if it had gone straight into the camera. Yeah, so I think that's how it was achieved.
Can I ask a question? Because the bit we've just seen where you were standing on the lawn in front of the house and you gestured to say the keep was over here behind the trees, did you not re-record your voiceover for that scene because you were a considerable distance away from the camera?
I don't remember any re-recordings, but we're talking of a number of years ago. You understand? You know, we're talking of possibly a dozen or so years. I didn't make notes at the time what we were doing or which day.
We're particularly interested because sound recording is difficult for us now with all this modern kit we have.
Yes.
And we watch it and we're agog that Dennis was able to achieve such a marvellous standard with it.
Yes.
Well, I think they used to sell those radio mics with an extension lead, and their claim was, and I tested it out with mine, that you can go 100 metres right across the other side of a field and still pick it up beautifully.
Really?
Do you recall whether Dennis looked at the weather forecast and chose particular days when there was no or very little wind in order to achieve such a good sound recording?
I don't remember any such discussions, do you?
I don't think they were so sophisticated, David, in that period. You're talking about 2008, 9, 20 odd years, 15, 20 odd years ago.
Yeah.
What time of the year was it?
Oh, summer. With a little bit of autumn as well, because at least one of the shots is of Kathleen's, still of the South Avenue of chestnut trees. So we merged into... By the way, I would draw your attention to the shot that goes towards the house, looking along the South Avenue. By perfect timing, somebody goes click-clock with a horse just across the end while we're doing that. And I believe there was a great deal of intervention in the whole process, but who knows?
Or maybe, I mean, is that area very, very quiet anyway, with very little traffic noise and
Yes. Yes, that's certainly true.
And do you recall how many days filming were
No, I'm sorry, David. I wasn't expecting to have to remember all. No, I would say that our process took the better part of 6 months. Would you agree with that, Alan?
Yes, I would. It was many ways drawn out, perhaps because of the weather or because of the other activities that Michael and Dennis were involved with.
Yes, I think we began in May 2008 and we ran on into the autumn, as I say, so probably by November we'd concluded.
And I see that you did your narration totally without notes or script. Was there an element of improvisation or yes?
Yes, I mean, if you know the subject, you can just summon it up. I couldn't do that now.
Can I ask, on the day when you arrived into the park with all the kit over your shoulders and in bags and boxes around you, did you know exactly where you were going,
Yes.
what shot you were going to take,
Yes.
what bit of your screen you were going to
Yes.
do? It was all absolutely replayed.
Yes.
You did one bit and you said, okay, we've done that, now we're going over to the
Yes.
avenue to do that bit
Yes.
over there.
Am I telling the truth, Alan?
Yes,
Would you agree with
okay.
that? Because I had done a number of tours, you see, so I knew which bit to say at which location, because this was 5 years into my process of taking people round, you see. So in effect, I'm taking the camera round instead of a party of people.
Yeah. And I'm amazed that you filmed on different days, because somehow the quality of the image and the atmosphere that's created is completely even over the whole thing. It just flows along.
Well, we were
so
very
nicely.
lucky.
You in the films you go over quite a number of developments on various sites. These days, any development requires an archaeological dig in an area of particular interest. Are you aware of any archaeological digs on those sites over the last 100 years or so?
No. There have been archaeological digs by default, in a sense, whenever they put new buildings up. There is a persistent, I don't know whether it's legend or fact, that Roman remains were found when they were digging the foundations for the Jacobean house. But I don't know of any such activities in our time. What I do know is that when the ground is dry and the grass is not growing very well, that you can see the outline in the South Avenue of the army huts that were put there in the Second World War. I photographed those, and we do know that by report, the outline of some of the stable buildings where I was standing in that view. You can still see some of the old outlines. But I don't think anybody has been doing digging in detail around the gateway, for example, since the 1780s.
Maybe that's going to be in the sequel.
Not in my time, Gov.
Well, I think I've come to the end of the questions on my list, so if anybody else has a question.